Hey everyone, welcome to a special edition of the Tennis and Bagels podcast. This is me, your host Vanch, and today joining me we have a special guest, someone who's not been on this podcast before, and his name is Miles David. Miles is quite the tennis content creator on YouTube as well as Twitter, and as well as he's got a podcast. It's called Tuned Into Tennis, so you should definitely check that out. And Miles is here with me to preview the 2023 Australian Open Women's Singles Draw. So I'm really excited to have him here. Miles, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on. I have been listening to the Tennis and Bagels podcast for a while now, and I'm a fan of your work. I'm a fan of your excellent statistical knowledge about tennis, especially from what I see on Twitter. I've always been just enamored with that. So I appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited to talk about the Australian Open. I think it's my second favorite slam. So I'm always excited when it comes around.
Yeah, I appreciate those kind words. I really look forward to the Australian Open every year just because I feel like, a lot of the players are coming fresh, usually off of a short off season that we have in tennis. Obviously some niggling injuries, and you never quite know what to expect. But at the same time, I do find that it's quite less upset prone, and the seeds tend to do quite well here. Just generally speaking, if you look at, quarterfinals onwards from previous years, it seems like most of the top seeds usually live up to the billing. Obviously, you have a few names here or there that really do surprise, but in general, I think this women's draw there's quite a lot to like here.
Yeah, I'm pretty I'm from the era of Australian Open women's draws where Serena Williams wins every odd year. So there haven't been, not that I can think of off the top of my head, there haven't been too many surprise women champions. There've been a couple more that have seeped in on the men's side, but the women's side, if it's not necessarily somebody you thought was going to win, it's somebody who's been around and in the conversation to do so. So I'm excited to see what happens in that regard this year.
Great, yeah. I guess right away, if we sort of just go quarter by quarter and we look at the Iga
Hmm.
Swiatek quarter, Swiatek obviously won two majors last year, went on a 37 match winning streak, is going to be the clear favorite no matter what after everything she accomplished last year. However, there's quite this is quite a tricky section. Right away, opening with Julia Nehmeyer. What were your thoughts when you sort of looked at her 16th or 8th of the draw? Um, Quite deep, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting section for a number one seed to be kind of surrounded by players who on paper kind of give me dangerous or yield or exclamation point vibes when I see their name. Although I do caution myself just because even when I've had times like that, and even in early 2022, that I thought, oh, Swiatek might be in trouble. She kind of made a fool out of me. So the names that pop out obviously is the first round, Jewel Niemeyer, just because they had a pretty hard contested match in the third or fourth round of the U.S. Open.
Correct.
Third round,
Fourth round,
fourth
and I
round.
believe Neymar was up a set and a break. And
Yeah,
yeah,
she put in some hard work in that match, and then she also got to the quarterfinals of Wimbledon. So she's one of those players that kind of was stung the most from not having points at Wimbledon 2022. So maybe she's not necessarily playing at her correct seeding or ranking, I should say. But it's something to keep an eye on. I'm not necessarily sure I put Swiatek on the upset alert kind of window, but interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if he drops a set. I'll say that.
yeah, I definitely feel the same way. I think it's a challenging start, obviously, against a big hitter on a fast hard court like this. I hear it's playing, sort of medium to fast. They're using those, Dunlop balls that they've been using throughout the whole season, and those are, pretty light, and they you can generally hit through the court pretty well with them. But it's going to be interesting to see how Swiatek looks kind of early on, especially after Jessica Pegula, beat her for the first time last week quite handily. But if we just look at her section, I mean, she's got Osorio most likely next, and then you got Andrescu and Buskova. Well, are there any sort of first round matches that really stand out to you apart from Niemeyer and Swiatek? For me, obviously, I have circled Andrescu and Buskova.
So I'm looking further down in that same section of the draw that she's in. That could possibly be somebody to meet her in the fourth round, and that could be 22 seed and Wimbledon champion Rabakina. And then also there's some couple of other names that just I want to throw out there, there's the highest seed in that bottom section that is, if seeds hold, that would be the fourth round matchup. Danielle Collins, who beat her in the semifinals last year pretty soundly, especially in that second set. And then there's also somebody that I didn't like notice was in that section until I took a really good glance just right now is I believe her first name is Karolina Mukova.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't seen her name in like big tournament draws yet, or recently I should say. But I believe she's made a quarterfinal here before in 2021.
Yeah, that's right. No, she made it even further, semis actually.
Semifinal,
And
yeah.
she beat Ash Barty, and she had that abdominal injury. She left the court, and Ash Barty really kind of was overcome by nerves in that match. And then she played that spectacular. I mean, it was a really good semifinal between her and Jennifer Brady, and so
Hmm.
I'd really love to see those two come back and contend for these big titles again. Because Mukova, I mean, she's such a crafty player. The way she constructs those points, the variety that she has, the slice backhand, just very smooth watch overall. I just, I she just hasn't been able to sustain a good amount of momentum and stay fit and play several tournaments in a row. But she's really fun to watch. And I remember last year she was getting on quite a roll. She beat Sakari at the French Open, had a good win over Leylah Fernandez in Miami, and you thought, okay, she's starting to pick up momentum. But then the next round after the Sakari upset, she got injured again and had to pull out against or retire in the middle of the match against Anisimova, I believe it was. So but I really would love to see her. I mean, she's got, I think, a reasonably winnable first round, and then she probably has
Yeah.
to play Danielle Collins, which
Sign me up for that. Yeah, sign
yeah,
me up for Mukova and Danielle Collins. I think I'd like to watch that. If I was on the
yeah,
grounds, that seems like it would be, I mean, no disrespect to the players, but that seems like it might be a outside court match. So
yeah, for sure.
I definitely would try to be as close as I could to the court for that one.
Yeah, I'd definitely go there and see that. But is there anyone you see potentially like getting to the fourth round? Do you still? I mean, I still have Iga getting to the fourth round in this
Yeah,
section.
I think it'll be good. I think it's good for women's tennis if she can kind of fight through that early round battle, and then maybe if she gets to, maybe you should put it the other way around. If Andrescu gets to Swiatek, because she is the unseeded player, I'd like to see that. I mean, those are two young guns. I think both of them are both under 22 years old. Both have Grand
Yep.
Slams. I'd like to see that. I just don't see anybody really truly knocking her off her way, especially on a hard court that she's had success on just last year. I'm kind of hoping to see a rematch of the semifinal in the fourth round between Collins and Swiatek.
Yeah, for sure. And even the third round rematch between her and Rybakina.
Hmm.
I believe they already played this year, and Rybakina won that in three sets.
Yeah,
That's
they
really
have.
interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I agree with you. I definitely want to see that Swiatek Collins fourth round rematch, especially after last year. But looking further down the section, I mean, her potential quarterfinal is Coco Gauff, and obviously Swiatek, has owned that head-to-head recently, 5-0, and Gauff doesn't seem to be getting any closer. Obviously, I mean, it's just a really bad matchup for her, just in general, with the absorbing the pace on the forehand wing, especially, and just really, yeah, just troublesome for her. And in that regards, I think Iga is a little bit relieved that it's not Arina Sabalenka or you know some of the other big hitters. Like I guess she wouldn't play Garcia in the quarters, but um, for Goff here, I think it's a tricky first round against Siniakova. That's not someone you want to face early on for sure.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a popcorn match just because my eyes aren't drawn to it when I see the draw. But when I look a little deeper into it, I realize that I've seen them play before relatively recently at the Billie Jean King Cup. And
Yeah,
Siniakova actually got that win, especially pretty comfortable in the second set. So I think that Coco should actually come out pretty sharp because she has motivation to win that match. Like the
yeah,
last time they played, she lost. She has extra motivation. And then beyond that first round match, there's a possibility that she could face Raducanu. Raducanu might not make it that far based off of some current health issues with her ankle. And even if she does make it to that second round match and it's a Raducanu versus Goff matchup, I still give the edge to Goff just because I feel like she has more form and confidence at the moment. So
yeah. I would definitely agree. I think based on form, I mean, obviously she's won that title. And in that title, she had to face, she faced actually a pretty stern test in Sophia Kenin, who's coming back and playing some really good tennis. And a lot of people were saying, "Oh, that's such a soft draw." She lost 22 games and all that. But I'm like, no, no. I mean, she was pushed against Kenin, and that could have gone either way. So, and yeah, on the Siniakova match, I think she's 3-1 in that head-to-head, and but the last one, Billie Jean King Cup, end of the season, really tired. Uh, you know, Successful season for her. So I kind of throw that a little bit out of the window, but it's good to see. It would be really nice to see her play Raducanu, and obviously you have Zhang in that sense, uh, in that section or that 32nd of that draw. So I would love
Hmm.
to see a potential Zhang against either Goff or Raducanu. But
They had a pretty good match at the U.S. Open, Zhang and Golf. I want to say it was the third or fourth round, maybe possibly fourth
wait,
round,
no,
I
no,
believe.
this is Shin Wen.
Oh,
So
not
this is
Zhang Shuai. Okay, now
yeah,
actually, I would like to see that as well too, because both of them are what, sub 21 possibly.
right.
I mean, I think that bodes well for women's tennis. And she has a really big game. So yeah, I would definitely sign up to watch Kinwen Jing and Coco in that third round. But just above Kinwen, like in that upper section, that could be a fourth round opponent for golf. Like we talked about it briefly before we hopped on the pod, but Badosa pulling out with
Mhm.
that injury definitely opens up some opportunity. The next highest seed in that little section is 17 seed Ostapenko, who plays Jastrzemska first round. The
Yeah,
winner of that matchup, I mean, I'm sure tennis players try not to look too far at draws, but if you're checking the draw post Badosa's retirement, withdrawal, I should say,
yeah.
that matchup now looks way more important because both of those have Ostapenko more so than Yastrzemski, but both of them have experience going deep in majors, whereas the rest of those names in that draw don't really. So
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, for sure. And then you also have I think Katie McNally. I mean, she was supposed to play Badosa, and
Hmm.
now it looks like she could maybe get to the third round. I mean, if she plays well. It's um it's looks like it could be a good opportunity for someone there to break through. I mean, Ostapenko is probably the favorite on paper to get out of that section and
But you
get to the
really
fourth
never know
round,
with
but you
Ostapenko.
just never know. I was just gonna say it's like, I mean, the difference between her peak and her average level, it's quite there's quite a variance there. Let's just say so.
Yeah.
um, but I mean, who do you have in the quarterfinals? I guess if we just look at the Goff and Swiatek section, are you going for anyone different?
No, I mean, I think I try my best not to play it safe, but I do think I'll go with the seeds holding and Swiatek and Golf meeting in that quarterfinal, just because I want to see, even if I'm a huge Coco fan, but even if she loses that matchup, I want to see like where her form, confidence, and progression of what she worked on in the off scene has actually gotten her. And there's no better test and litmus test than playing the number one player in the world. So I kind of want to see what she feels like going up against Swiatek, even if the head to head isn't favoring her at all, you know?
Yeah, interesting. I also just can't really trust anyone else really in this section, so I'm gonna go with the seeds as well. No disagreement from me there so far. But I guess if we go down and we look at the bottom half of the bottom quarter of the first half, I guess, with the Pagula section in there.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously Pagula is coming in with such great form, right? I mean, having gone 4-1 at the United Cup, so playing such an instrumental role in helping the US win in the inaugural edition. And I look at her draw and it's like it's a pretty reasonably good one. I mean, she does have potentially Anisimova, who had a very good tournament last year, a pretty good year in general when she was healthy. And then you also have names like Krejcikova and always dangerous Petra Kvitova. And so, I would this is going to be a really good test for Pagula because for the first time, I really feel like eyes are on her and she has that sort of expectation of getting to the semifinals of this tournament at least and potentially playing Swiatek again. So I'm curious to see how she sort of handles that mentally. She's usually very sort of buttoned up and pretty sure of herself and confident, and goes on and does her job professionally. So I'm curious to see, especially, I mean, Brenda Fruhvirtova. I mean, what a story that was, qualifying,
So
coming,
dramatic. Every
so
single
many.
match.
And all three of her matches, I feel like she
Yes.
made these insane comebacks. I mean, she was down and out in 15 years of age. It's impressive to see her there for sure.
And also another qualifier is I don't remember her first name, so I'm just going to use. Well, you know what? The beauty of the internet. I should probably click on it. Yep, Polina. I would have guessed correctly. Polina Kudermetova, the younger sister
Yep.
of top 10 player Veronika Kudermetova. This is her first Grand Slam, first time in qualifying, and she made it through. So, I mean, there has to be some level of confidence that you feel from kind of knocking off those achievements off your resume. So I wouldn't be surprised if she puts up a fight and gets to the third round. That'd be a good story, especially like another sister story on the WTA
Yeah.
tour. But actually, when it comes to Pegula, I think she's a wonderful player. She does very, very, very little wrong on the tennis court, but just off the heels of the US Open, when I kind of thought that she would be the person lifting the trophy, I felt like she was calm enough to kind of weather the New York storm, if you will. But Swiatek undersold herself before that tournament started and said she didn't like the ball. So I didn't really think that Swiatek would win. I thought Pegula would. So this go around, I'm being a little bit more cautious. And I know she had like the great performance at the United Cup against Swiatek. And I know she's performed well here before, but I see some other names in that section that'll not maybe stop her from getting to the fourth round, but definitely stop her from getting into the quarters.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make there. I mean, obviously you have what, 5 qualifiers in this section? I mean, I gotta think
Mm-hmm.
that's the most qualifiers in any section.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and then you
crazy.
also have a wild card in there, Gadecki, and
Mm-hmm.
she's being mentored by Ash Barty actually. So this is that
Oh, wow.
that is a first round match I hadn't had circled before, but now that I'm looking at it, that'll be pretty interesting. Kudermetova's sister against, you know, someone being mentored by, I mean, Olivia Gadecki. I've definitely heard of her and seen her name in draws, but I don't know too much about her.
Me
Um,
either. I have to look that up now because now I'm interested to see what her game looks like if Ash Barty got her attention.
yeah, and then of course the other thing that stands out in this section is, my goodness, the Czechs are coming, right? I mean, you have you also have Krejcikova playing against Belgic. Forgive me if I pronounced that incorrectly, but she played this match against Alicia Parks, I think, in qualies, and Parks, had such a good finish to last year and really kind of halved her ranking at the end, and it just
And should have been qualified. I mean, quote
yeah,
unquote, should have been main draw based off of those results, but the cutoff just didn't work in her
right.
favor.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for her, and I think she just didn't play a good match in that qualies match. I think she had some amazing like 35 winners, but then hit like 70 on forced errors, and it was a
Yeah.
bummer. But I think she's got the tools, and I still believe in Parks to do some really big things this year. But just looking at it, I think the main contenders that Pegula definitely has to worry about, I would say three are like Anisimova, Kvitova, and Krejcikova. Those are the three that sort of stand out to me, because if any of those three players are playing, at their peak sustained tennis for a long time, especially, I mean, if Kvitova just comes out there and just blasts winners on set points down and just, plays redlining tennis and just shows absolutely no fear, it's like there's not
Who
much
can
I
stop that?
can
Yeah.
really do about it. So it's and
I
same with
love,
Krejcikova as well. The
yeah.
form that she had at the end of last year, I don't think she's looked too great in these tune-ups, but I don't think that matters. I think she's got enough matches in, and she's such a instinctual player as it is, and so complete that she could always show up at any point in time.
Krajcikov was actually the name that I'm looking at to make it through this section. Something about it, I might be completely off base, but something about her name is giving me good energy because she's in a section that's benefiting the most from qualifiers and wildcards. So she has, on paper, the best ability to kind of work her way through the draw and then face somebody like a Kvitova. And I love Kvitova. I modeled some of my personal tennis playing around her. She's a lefty. She hits big and kind of doesn't worry too much about the errors and plays aggressive, but it's hard to trust her. Kvitova is one of those players I root for, like the closer they get to the title. But in the beginning, I'm kind of like, well, let's just see what she does. So I'm hoping that the two do meet up, but I'm leaning towards Krejcikova making out of this section. And she's also a defending quarterfinalist, so she
Yeah,
also feels comfortable in Australia on those courts. So it'd be interesting to see what happens.
yeah, very much so. I mean, Krejcikova is a really good pick to get out. I'm just hesitating a little bit on her just because, I still have faith in her, but I just wonder, like, is she ready? Is something, is she going to have that consistent level? Like, just kind of with Andreescu as well. It's like, I have no doubt that they'll get there with enough matches and enough reps, but I just don't know if they're ready, like, quite yet. So I kind of hesitate a little bit, but I definitely see where you're coming from. Like, Krejcikova making the quarters would not shock me in the slightest. And maybe in the semis, if we could get a potential rematch with her and
Mm-hmm.
Swiatek, that would be wonderful. I mean,
Yep.
especially after the Ostrava final, one of the
That
matches.
was a really good match. Yeah, really, really good match.
But yeah, I'm gonna be boring again. I'm gonna have to go with Pagula again. I'm just being boring today. I'm
Nah,
not
she's
ready for that.
playing well. There's nothing boring in that. She's definitely playing well and is playing like a number three player in the world for sure.
Yeah, and then of course we have the section below, and the section below, the thing that stands out is obviously you have Kenin and Azarenka against each other, the only two females in this entire quarter who are previous Australian Open winners, and they have to go up against each other. It's
I think they're the only two winners in the entire women's singles draw, actually. And
correct,
of course,
correct. Yeah.
they just go head to head in the first round. But Kenin, hot take, is actually who I've been circling as somebody to make a really good resurgence this year. I
Mhm.
definitely see her. Maybe I shouldn't say definitely, but I have a feeling that she's going to get at least back to the top 50 in the world by the end of the year, if not better than that. I think she has very few points to defend almost anywhere. And I
Yeah.
think she's won as many matches this year as she won in the totality of 2022. So she's
Yeah.
definitely improving, and I know I kind of get a good vibe that she's going to show up ready to fight against Azarenka. But their head to head is interesting because I want to say the last time they played in Rome of 2020, which was in the pandemic year and not in its normal slot, she got double bageled by Azarenka, but that was on clay.
Mhm.
So
And then she went and made the French Open final.
right.
So that was actually quite something. And I think she made the semifinals of Hobart, which is her first semifinal,
Hmm.
the first one since 2020 Roland Garros. So it's been
Crazy. That's
that
crazy.
that is ridiculous to think about. But I mean, she's only 23. Like it's
Right.
not, or I guess 24 now. But that's you know, yeah,
She's
24.
young.
But it's well, I mean, she's already won a slam and made another slam final. There's not many other players who can say that. So, but I also circle Madison Keys here because she tends to do really
Same.
well in Australia. Like, I mean, I remember when she pushed Serena in 2015, I think it was, and then obviously last year she had that great run to the semis before Ash Barty really kind of took her apart. But that's going to be interesting. And obviously she went 5-0 at the United Cup. Didn't always face the sternest of tests, but usually passed them with flying colors most of the time. So I look at her and then I look at some other players in this. I mean, Sakari as well, but I wonder if she's sort of conquered some of her demons. But I'm really just kind of not seeing her getting past the fourth round for some reason. I just don't have much
I'd
faith in her.
I'd love to see her conquer some of the demons, and like a lot of people know me as a Sakura fan, just because I'm intrigued by how much she lets us into what is she struggling with, like with the pressure and being a top elite player. But I have to admit, I see Keys getting out of this section pretty comfortably, just because like on paper she shouldn't have too many problems getting to at least the third round. And then once you have kind of felt that groove, she's a groove player. So, I mean, the sky is the limit. I know she hasn't reached her potential all the way and like gotten a Grand Slam championship under her belt, but I have a good feeling. I have a good feeling about it. Something about the camaraderie she probably felt at the United Cup mixed with, being back in the top 10. Because of those results, she snuck into the top 10, got the number 10 seed here. So, I think she's feeling good.
Yeah, I totally feel the same way as well. Like it's strange for me to say this, but she's definitely the most reliable in this.
Yep.
She feels like that. I mean, at least based on everything you said, and also just the kind of because when she's feeling well, and she's sort of one of those confident players, confidence-based players that when she gets like, yeah, I mean, when she's 5, 6 matches in a row, the deeper she goes in the draw, at least before the final, the more dangerous I feel like she gets, unless she has a real foil like a Barty or a Serena or someone. It really takes someone of that caliber, like a Sloane
Hmm.
Stephens, a red hot one at the U.S. Open when they played. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Keys and Pagula as well, and I think I have Pagula coming out of that match and facing Fiontek if we just look at that top half.
I'm going Keys Krejcikova. Going with the
All
K's.
right. Yeah, I like it. I like it. It's exactly the contrast we need, to be honest. So, but yeah, I guess we should go to the bottom half, and
Okay.
obviously that kicks off with Kazakina's quarter, the number 8 seed, and obviously her potential round of 16 is Kudermetova as well. I actually really like this draw for Kudermetova. I mean, quietly she's been winning a lot, getting a lot of ranking points, just you know usually benefited by a withdrawal here or there in most tournaments.
Speaking of withdrawal, have they played, now that we're like having this conversation, have they played the final of the Adelaide WTA 500 yet?
I
Because I
think
know
that
the
was
semifinals were a
yeah.
complete bust with withdrawals.
I think that Bencic Kazakina match is probably about to start actually any minute.
Oh, okay, cool, cool, cool.
But yeah, so I'll definitely have my eye on that as well. Bencic is someone else who just wins so many 500s and does so well on the tour, but just hasn't done well in this majors outside of Wimbledon. It's really quite something actually. But and still, she's it feels like she's been around forever, but she's only 25. It's
I
like
know, right?
yeah,
She has a win over Serena in 2015, which
yeah,
is almost 10 years ago. Like that's crazy.
right. Yeah, and I mean, like I look at this section, I'm like, this is a good draw, like for someone like yeah. I mean, Kudermetova, I like her chances to get out of this, especially given yeah, like just her first two rounds seem quite winnable, and then she's got Zhang who can be somewhat tricky, and you have to play a certain level. Golubic as well, but I definitely think if she's healthy, she probably gets out of there. There's a few. I think this is maybe the least interesting section, to be honest. Section five.
Definitely getting
Uh,
those vibes. If it's not Kudermetova that makes it through this entire section, something about Kasatkina in Grand
yeah,
Slams feel a little not that she hasn't proven herself that she can go deep into one, but I kind of have to see it to believe it. One of those things. I don't really write it on paper. Um
yeah, and it does
yeah,
kind of worry me that she's playing the final this week. I say that because I remember the
she's
U.S.
done that
Open.
before. Yeah.
The U.S. Open, she won in Cleveland, I want to say, and she won that title, and then she lost to Harriet Dart in the first round. I mean,
Yep.
that was tricky. She was like one of the first few seeds to go out.
Head
Uh,
scratcher.
but but yeah, like I guess we'll move on to a more interesting section at the
I will
bottom.
say though, but before we move on, the name Petra Martic is
Yeah.
right there looking at me, and somehow she always finds her way into a part of the draw where she can make some noise, and you're like, this makes total sense why she has been as high as like what top 25. You know,
Mhm.
she's typically a player that's seeded anywhere between 25 and 32, and she's unfortunately not seeded here. But like I wouldn't be surprised if she kind of finagles her way into the later round of the tournament. This is kind of what she
Yeah.
does.
She is quite tricky, man, with that backhand slice and just can pull the trigger on the forehand down the line, and she like when she gets it going. I mean, yeah, I remember like watching her at the French Open in 2019,
hmm
and I think last year at the U.S. Open, she really took apart Paula Badosa, and I was just like, okay,
I was
she's
at that match. Yeah, that was court 17, I believe.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
forgot about that one.
yeah, the other interesting section. I mean, this is far more interesting for me. Fernandez and Cornet and Garcia in that one section. I mean, my goodness. And you also have yeah, players like Townsend. Good to see her back. Playing and looks like she can actually win some doubles majors, which is great. She's won two doubles titles this year. So
Back to back,
yeah, that's a fun one with Diane Perry as well. One-handed backhand. But just had to throw that in there. But
It's a
but
beautiful backhand. Like I really like it really is. She
yeah,
upset Krajcikova in the first round of the 2022 French Open, and she just has a very elegant, aesthetically pleasing type game.
yeah, for sure. And then I look at someone like Nanette. I think this is a good opportunity for her. Kontaveit hasn't been playing her best tennis, and Lynette with the vibes from Team Poland and the United Club competition, and just in general, she can be a dangerous player. I remember she beat Jabeur last year at the French Open, and she can generally play on most surfaces. I love her backhand, and I think she could actually do some damage with this draw that she's got. I think that Garcia section with Fernandez, I mean, that's a tricky first round for Leila Cornet. I mean,
hmm
talk about someone who has just made a career on upsets in the first few rounds of majors, particularly last season. I mean, that was just almost every major she had these scalps.
Yeah, she's known for digging in and kind of causing an upset, even if there's not really much one like there, because Fernandez isn't seeded either and hasn't been playing wonderful in the past 6 months. But I mean, partly due to injury, but interested to see how that one goes. I'm sure it'll be a long one with some interesting rallies and using all parts of the court. But I do have to say, on paper, this looks like a pretty grand opportunity for Garcia to kind of really step into her potential, the potential that Andy Murray set forth for her. um,
Yeah,
the draw does not look bad. I mean, I know we just talked about Fernandez and Cornet, and she would win. She would meet the winner of that match in the second round. But beyond that, I mean, you got Arena Camelia Begu, which would be the highest seed she could face in the third round, and she's been playing relatively well. I believe she made a semifinal in one of these lead up tournaments
yep,
before the Australian, and then Kontaveit would be a potential fourth round, but she might not even make it that far. So I
yep.
want to see Garcia get out of this section just to confirm that I'm not crazy for thinking that she has a second chance to kind of affirm herself as everything that people have seen her to be, which I mean, people have called her to be a Grand Slam champion, and I think she can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt her game is there. I mean, it's just, and she has put together a really consistent stretch now. I mean, if we go all the way back to when she won the French Open doubles last year, I mean, you look at her winning Bad Homburg, qualifying and winning Cincinnati. That right there was so
Mm-hmm.
impressive because that was 7 match wins in a row. The really only bad match that she's played in that stretch really significantly was the Jabeur match in the US Open semis. She really just didn't show up for that one. But I definitely think if she's in that position again, I like her a lot now because having won the WTA finals, having tasted glory at the second highest level, and being four in the world, it feels like different from 5 years ago when she actually just got there based on a few good results at the end of the year. This feels like she's found her replicable winning formula. She's now committed to taking those returns early, coming in, and this is her style. There's no wavering from it now. And I think you just have to be super confident when you're playing that kind of game because if you're even just a little bit off, it can be ugly. But when she's connecting, and my goodness, some of the serves, obviously, I think she was the tour leader last year in aces. The stats
Mm-hmm.
bear out. And yeah, had one of the best first serve percentages, and and that's across all surfaces. So I'd love to see her get out of this section, and she's been pretty reliable, really. I mean, I think this week she lost to Bencic, but I wasn't too concerned. That was a very
That's
close
not a bad
contested match,
loss necessarily. Yeah,
and
could have gone either way.
that's probably going to be beneficial anyway because that gives her some more rest and time and get used to the Melbourne conditions. So
I
that's
think confidence plays a big role into like why she's been in this stretch. But I think if she really wants to capitalize on the stretch, she just has to focus on being as clear as possible. And I think her kind of committing to one play style, which is aggressive, get to the net, take everything early as much as I can, and utilize my serve. If
yeah,
she has like a very clear game plan with the draw that she has, I can see her going far. If she just believes in it, it'll happen for her.
yeah, for sure, man. I really just don't want to go with all these seeds. Like this is not the WTA I know.
I know, right? The WTA will definitely make a fool out of you as soon as the first match is like live. Like,
But at the
wait, I
same
didn't
time,
even see that.
I really want the seeds to do well because I think it'll just. I mean, imagine if we have the ATP just all unseeded players, and then we have
Right.
we have some. I mean, it's just going to be quite the flip. So, yeah, I would love to see how tennis Twitter reacts to that as well. So, um, but I'm really tempted to pick Garcia to get out of this section, and I think I'll go with like Kudermetova. Something about Kazakina is like just not really. Um,
Understood.
I mean, she did make the French Open semis last year, but yeah, I mean,
That's more her playground than I think
yeah,
hard. Now she's not a bad hardcore player, but I think her style of game, the clay rewards it tenfold
for
more
sure.
than the hardcourts do.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, you do also have like Pliskova, Kirstea. I don't feel too great about Pliskova right now.
Not
Um,
at all.
Particularly the first half of these seasons, she's not been great. So it's usually the second half when she tends to find some form and really pick up some wins. But
For a player that's been kind of famous for not having emotion, she seems even more emotionless out there, which is kind of crazy. Like I think she goes on the court and realizes that like in order for her to get her best out of her game, she has to kind of be more centered. But even like, even that looks a little weary these days. See, I'm not sure what she's doing out there. I'm really not.
yeah, I just watch her play. I'm like, move those feet, man. Just move those feet.
It's
Like,
like her shoes are too heavy or something. Like I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, the ball striking is there. You can hit aces, but move those feet. Like, but yeah, I mean, if we just go, I guess now we're getting to the last section, and I find this section quite interesting with Ons Jabeur obviously having made those two major finals back to back, but also just her in general coming into this tournament. She didn't play this event last year, so quite a really good opportunity for her to pick up points. Obviously, I mean, no one really has a bad thing to say about Jabeur, just as a person and just the what she represents in tennis and all of that. And would just love a deep run from her. But I mean, and I do like her draw somewhat, but then she's got some tricky opponents. Like Vondrousova is just so not easy. I mean, with the way she's been playing lately, and also just I think she's found some really good form, having played in December and getting a lot of match wins. I mean, troubled Sabalenka for a little bit in her title run as well,
Hmm.
and she tends to do well in. I think she did well last year as well. So I think,
She actually lost to Sabalenka in a pretty
yeah.
topsy turvy three set
Oh
match.
yeah, was that the one where Sabalenka like joked
It's like
afterwards? Like,
only in
yeah,
10 double faults. Yes.
yeah, yeah, that was the one. I think she came back from a set down to win that one. But
Yeah.
and then you also have Kanepi in there, and Kanepi being seated instead of
I know, right?
so. But
Spare a
yeah,
thought for Venus Williams too, because Venus
oh
Williams
yeah,
would have gotten Kanepi in the first round. I'm kind of glad we dodged that bullet, but I do want her to be healthy.
yeah, absolutely. But my goodness, also you do have Stephens in that section. You have Haddad Maya. Man, I don't really know what Stephens is doing these days, to be honest. First two matches of the year were a little ugly. I guess that loss to Makarova aged kind of well, but um,
The
yeah,
one thing I can say about Sloane Stevens that gives me a glimmer of hope, like I'm not necessarily picking her to do anything spectacular at this tournament, although this is the 10-year anniversary of when she made the semifinals, which is
oh yeah,
another crazy fact that I've been like in this tennis world for a solid almost 2 decades. Like it seems like just yesterday she made that semi. But anyway,
yeah.
she teamed up recently with Rafa Nadal's ex-coach,
Francisco Roy, yeah,
Francisco Roy. For me, for when a coach has been around the level that Nadal exerts and like his ability to kind of be a top player and maintain that, it doesn't make sense realistically for him to go to somebody who he doesn't believe has any better tennis in them. Like from
yeah,
that, to me, that seems that there must have been some kind of conversation or some showing of effort, which is something that Sloane Stevens kind of struggles with, at least from a television perspective. It kind of seems hard to believe that she's fully engaged in some matches, but that might just be a personality thing, right? Um, but something tells me that she's in that, and I've used this analogy prior. She's in that this kind of sector of her career where she's tinkering with things. Like she just changed her racket, the new coach, stuff like that. And I believe people have said they've noticed some kind of technical changes on her forehand. When you do stuff like that, I do believe you don't necessarily see like the fruits of your labor automatically, especially with tennis when you have to be in a groove or something like that. So hopefully this is her kind of retooling some things for a really good push. I'd love to see that. That's me being super optimistic and hopeful. But all of that to say is I don't necessarily see it benefiting her in this tournament, but just a spare thought for Sloane Stevens.
yeah, absolutely. And I think we can still see it down the road as well. Rolling
Yeah,
Garros.
right.
I mean that's where she really tends to shine, even when she's not playing her best. So I look at her there, and I think she could put up a really good performance on the clay.
Her tennis has been beautiful there for sure. But in terms of did we talk about the section prior with
No, we
Sab?
didn't. I was actually just going to say we completely skipped
Okay.
that section. That's my bad, actually. But it's just scrolled a little too far down. But I mean, if you have Sabalenka and Bencic in that section, you have some interesting first rounds. Muguruza and Mertens is quite an eye-catching one. I mean, you got Georgie and Pavlyuchenkova. Good to see Pavlyuchenkova back. You got some Americans in there. Lauren Davis just won a title this week.
Hmm.
Rogers as well. Rogers is always a dangerous second, third round match with these top seeds. Um, but you know what? I'm really tempted to think that Arena Sabalenka's this is going to be a really big opportunity for her, just because I mean, last week she usually has like 15 or 20 minute stretches where she just looks unstoppable, unbeatable, and then she has a 15 minutes where she just can't find the court. But last week I saw less of those 15 minutes where she couldn't find the court, and more of the times where it was just really out of her control. I remember even the Noskova final. I really thought I was waiting for her to get tight at the end of that second set when Noskova raised her level, and she just stuck in there. And I think the reason why I put so much stock in that title and win is just because it had been so long since she'd won a title, right? I mean, we have
Hmm.
to go all the way back to like 2021 Madrid when we saw her beat Barty, and they had somewhat of a really good rivalry that year as well. But I just look at her now and I just feel like there's a little bit of pressure lifted off of her shoulder in some way, because even though she hasn't got that slam, and we all know she has the game to do it, it's just I feel like she's enjoying her tennis a lot more. She's fixed the serve biomechanically, fewer double faults just in general. That's the biggest thing. and it just looks like she's genuinely just enjoying playing the game and the process of it. So I
I'm leaning in. I'm leaning into Team Sabalenka here, just because you got to think about the story arc. You know, like think about literally at Adelaide in 2022,
oh my goodness.
how like anxious and sad and upset she was because she couldn't get a serve in the box, and then fast forward 2023, she wins that tournament. I dare say wins the Australian Open. I'm leaning into it as much as I ever have been, and I think
Yeah.
she feels confident and secure in her tennis finally. She's always going to be a little crazy out there, like she says. She's always going to be feisty and fighting, but I think she's secure in the level of her game because honestly, if you really look at it, there were certain chunks of 2022 where she probably played the worst tennis of her career. Of her professional career, I think she would admit to that, and yet she still finished top 10 in the world, like comfortably. I think that juxtaposition of playing so badly, but still being able to really perform at the biggest moments, like defending your semifinal at the US Open, getting to the final WTA finals in Fort Worth, she kind of feels in a way like she's playing with house money. Like
Yeah.
she's done the hard work. She's kind of been at her quote unquote lowest of the lowest and still persevered. And now she's, looking forward to knocking some goals off of her list that have been there for a while. And I think she can do it. I'm looking at her to really make a big splash at this Australian Open. And I have her going through that section. I'm not even trying to pay too much attention to the names around her. That's because I'm
Yeah.
leaning so far into Sabalenka here. Hope she doesn't make a fool out of me though.
Yeah. I certainly hope. I feel I share a lot of those same sentiments, and I just feel like it really doesn't matter who she's across the net from. Like, I mean, we saw what she did to Swiatek even in the US Open semis. I mean, she was like 8 points away from winning that match, and and even the year before against Leila, it's like she just comes so close, and it's hard for me to envision a world where she doesn't at least win one. Like, it's just and she's been on
Same.
the tour for so many years now, and she's still only 24. It's like she's got such a good resume outside of the majors now, like 4 1000s, like one
I think she's been to
titles.
eight. I think she's been to 18, maybe 19, including the final in Adelaide that just happened. 19 career WTA finals since
Yep.
2017, and she's not even 25 herself yet. Like that's really impressive. And she does have three semifinals to her credit in Grand Slams, but even still, even with all those accolades, it feels like there's still an upper echelon that she can kind of reach. So I'm excited for her.
And if she does play Jabeur in the quarterfinals, she has a very good
Hmm.
record against her, and she beat her at Wimbledon, and she also beat her at the at the WTA finals. And
Hmm.
I just think she has way too much power for Jabeur when she's playing well. So I look at that section, and who's another name that really intrigues me in the Jabeur section? I
Who's
actually
that?
don't have Jabeur getting out of this section.
Me either, actually.
I I, I really don't, and I don't know. This might surprise you, but I'm going to be a little bold. I'm going to go for Donna Vekic
I knew you were going to say that. I felt it. I felt it. Yeah,
because
I can see it.
I watched her play last year in San Diego. Okay, and the thing is, like, I saw a different player. Like, I know she's been to I know she's made that U.S. Open quarterfinal, and she's made a few other deep runs. She was once a top 20 player, but something just about her mentality has just shifted a little bit. Like, she just has a little bit more belief. The serve is a little bit bigger. That forehand is a little bit more terminating now. And it just looks like, and I think she also pushed Iga she took a set off of Iga in that final. And the way she beat Danielle Collins that day was so impressive to me because there were so many rain delays in San Diego. It like never rains in San Diego. And that day, when I was going, it just had to. And it was just like, it was just so much start and stop. And I believe that she had to play both the semis and the final in the same day. And I was just like, she was outside the top 70, and it's like now I'm seeing just a few more signs of where, and she hasn't done anything spectacular at all in these lead-in tournaments, and hasn't really had any form whatsoever. But I like her section of the draw also because very winnable first round. Second round is against Samsonova, who's been a little like up and down, been a little bit shaky closing off some of these matches. And obviously, Samsonova has one of the best forehands and serves, and she's probably inevitably going to climb up in the rankings later this year. But I don't know. And also, I think she's getting a lot of help and consultation from Pam Shriver as well, who I had on
Hmm.
this podcast, and she's a big believer in Vekic. And I don't think someone of Pam's status in the game would say something like that lightly if she didn't see it and believe it herself with her own eyes. So that
Hmm.
that also gives me a little bit of confidence as well, because I mean, yeah, I think Pam has a good eye for these sort of things, and she has a lot of good inside information. But yeah, I also look at like Haddad Maya, players like that, but I don't have that much faith in Jabor right now, and also just her fitness is a little shaky to me. So I'm gonna go with Vekic and Sabalenka to get out of that section, and I'm picking Sabalenka into the semis.
I'm totally with the Vekic hype train. I think when I've watched her play, there's something special about the way she hits the ball. And uh, throwback alert, she reminds me of one of my favorite players from the mid 2000s, Nicole Vadisova. And I've
Oh,
always
okay,
kind
yeah,
of wanted, yeah,
see that.
her last name starts with the V, Vekic Vadisova. They kind of remind me, both play with the Giannis racket. And I've always kind of wanted Vekic to pick up where Vadisova left off. But I see Becky's getting through her first two rounds, but if she makes it to the Beatrice Haddad Maya third round, which I
That's
want to
gonna be
see,
tricky.
yeah, it's going to be tricky. And I actually have, I don't know where this came from. Maybe sometimes I see players' names on a draw and they kind of like do like a little glow thing to me. This is what happened with Beatrice Haddad Maya. I'm picking her to get out of that section. I am, and I'm picking her to meet Sabalenka in the quarters. I'd like to see that.
Oh, that's the yeah, I like that pick. Obviously, Haddad Maya has been, last year Canada, obviously, and then just the whole comeback and journey she's been on, obviously. But yeah, I think we're ready to sort of predict our semis and finals and winner. So,
This
so
always gives me anxiety. I have no idea why. I'm always like, oh yeah, I'm going on record with who I'm picking to win this tournament.
yeah, and to be fair, like this is one of those. This is like just predicting majors in general. I mean, predicting 2 weeks worth of tennis. It's just like,
It's hard.
yeah, and also like I just like hats off to anyone who ever gets it right, just because there's like, I mean, it's just fun being wrong in some of these matches as well. Like you love being surprised as much as you love being right. At least for me, anyway.
Hmm.
I mean, I'd love to go back and just be like, see, I told you so, but I'd also love to go back and be like, damn, I was totally wrong.
Like the person who magically picked Rabakina to win Wimbledon last year. Like who? I'd
Yeah,
love to talk to you. Like how did you see that coming?
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think I have Iga and Pegula, so I went straight up chalk. Oh my goodness, no, I didn't just do this. No way. I don't have. Do I really have Garcia Sablenka? I mean, that is. Oh,
In
that is
the
straight up chalk.
semi,
Yeah.
I'd like to see it. Their match at the WTA finals was really, really good. I think I'm going to do a Swiatek versus Krejcikova semi,
Yeah, that's a good one.
and then who did I pick to get out of this section?
I mean, you had.
Oh, never mind. I remember. I remember. I remember. I think I'm gonna go Garcia Sabalenka as well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Garcia Sabalenka, and then Krejcikova Swiatek.
Damn. So the
Oh
only
man,
difference
it's
is
a
you
little
have
bit. It's a
is
little bit like I don't know. It seems too good to be true on paper.
yeah, it does. I mean, you're definitely right, but I also think
Wait, can I change my mind?
you can. Yeah, of course. I want you to actually.
Hmm. Wait, let me make sure that I can actually do this. Is this even possible? Oh no, it's not possible. I just made it up in my head. I was gonna have well, yeah, sorry, take that back. Swiatek Keys semifinal.
Okay.
Is that yeah? I'm looking at the draw and I'm like, it's confusing me, but I'm pretty sure that's possible based off the draw. Yeah, Swiatek Keys semifinal with the other semifinal, the bottom half being Garcia and Sabalenka.
Very interesting. So you have Krejcikova getting to the quarters, and then you have Keys Krejcikova meeting again. Like it's basically the rematch of last year
Hmm. I
in the
think Keys can
quarters.
do it again. Yeah, something about it. I mean, I have a feeling people are going to make me eat my words this tournament, but I just have a feeling. I have a feeling. I have a
Yeah,
feeling that the courts are playing slicker, that the people who take the biggest cuts, and you might litter up the statue a little bit, but the people that are really being the dictators out there are going to really benefit from this year's Australian Open.
yeah, very much. That is interesting. Like against Krejcikova, I really like that matchup for Keys actually
Hmm.
with those big cuts, and I feel like she can just match Krejcikova from the baseline as well, and she really took her apart last year. And I think Krejcikova just like struggled in the heat as well, so that was part of it. Um, Yeah, and Keys doesn't mind the heat at all. So that's this is another reason why this tournament is so good from her.
She's
Being
surprisingly like really fit. Like none of her time off court, or like she never seems super. Maybe because it's the style of play that she likes, which is kind of like wham bam, thank you, ma'am. But she never seems too winded out there. All of her
yeah,
injuries have been like body function, like a wrist or a shoulder or something like that. Nothing to do with her, stamina or anything revolving around that.
definitely, yeah. Yeah, so I'm picking Pagula over Keys. Not quite ready to go Super Boulder and Krejcikova just yet, although I will at probably some point this year. I'm going with Pagula Swiatek. I just think Swiatek will do her homework a lot better, be more prepared. She's been in these situations many times already, made like 5 or 6 semis already, and this is the only one missing in terms of a final. And I just think it's going to be different conditions. Um, she's more prepared, like I said, for these situations. And, their overall head to head is 4-1. But I also think some of the reason why that match was so one sided at the United Cup is obviously Swiatek having to travel. And then she wasn't really very used to those conditions. And it was just kind of a gut check for her, the emotions that she displayed after she lost that match. And,
Mm-hmm.
I just think, and also for Pagula, this is also a big step, right? Getting to a semis for the first time. She's made quarterfinals of Australia twice now, 2021 and 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So I still just, especially also if that's earlier in the day, like if it's that's the first night match that's on, usually it's still not quite totally night, and there's still some lingering heat as well, and maybe some of the conditions and variables are in Iga's favor more. But I'm picking Iga and Sabalenka in the final. Um,
Hmm. I think I'm going to do Sabalenka Keys. I'm going big on both of them. I think Keys, if she gets to that semifinal with Swiatek, the last time they played, I'm pretty sure Keys won in Cincinnati. I
yeah,
think that confidence goes a long way. We've seen some of the chinks in the armor of Swiatek. Madison should feel like, there's two sides of it. Like, she kind of could naturally feel some of the pressure. Like, oh, how many more opportunities do I have to kind of put myself in this Grand Slam winning predicament? Or like I'm a top 10 player again, like from the depths of the lows that she had when she was like outside the top 70 or close to it. I'm back in the top 10. I should be swinging freely again, and I know what it feels like to be here. So let me use some of my experience. So I hope that she leads or leans towards that side of it, and we get a Keys Sabalenka final. I feel like the Dunlop balls would like that.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really going to benefit the bigger hitters who take big
Yep.
cuts and also serve big, and also the daytime conditions are really going to reward the top spin as well. So yeah, this is in some. That's why I really like the Melbourne courts in general. I think it used to be like U.S. Open was slow for a while and Australian Open was fast, and now it's just they're kind of both medium to fast now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a good surface, and at the same time, it's not like the ATP Finals in Turin where you just can't break serve at all.
That was
So
lightning fast. I like it though. I do like it.
yeah,
End of the year.
for sure. But yeah, and then I have
How did I get here to Keith Sabalenka fight
yeah, I mean, I think you had Garcia, so you're going with Sabalenka beating Garcia in the semi.
Garcia in the semis? Yeah,
Yeah, so that would be a revenge from the WTA Finals final.
which I think Sabalenka is all about. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that was such a good final, actually. I mean, it was
Very good.
yeah, that was very good quality and could have gone either way. It was just came down to a couple of double faults in the tiebreak, but um, yeah, and I have the same thing, but just with Iga Sabalenka, and I actually am gonna lean the other way this time. I know Iga is like phenomenal in finals. I know she's never lost. She's lost 40 games and 10 finals before
Wow.
the Ostrava match against Krejcikova, but I just feel like, I mean, the margins have to shift in Arena's way at some point, right? And in a really, really big match. And when she finds that gear, like she did in that third set of the WTA final, or
Hmm.
even in the first 6 games of that third set of the US Open match, I just think she's going to conquer her demons and just hit right through them. The way she's been playing, and Iga, we've seen a little bit of more fragility sometimes now in finals. I mean, it's just one final and one semi, and the Pagula match, but I just think there's a little something there. Uh,
Hmm.
Still, that there's a little chink there. Sometimes her forehand can get a little tight, can get rushed with pace, and Sabalenka. has the belief and the game to do it. So I'm thinking if it's not now for Arena, which is a crazy thing to say because it's like she's 24. She's gonna have more bites at the apple, plenty more. But
I
I
hope
just
so.
think,
I think she will.
yeah, and I just feel like I feel like it'll be now. I'll go with it. I'm picking
Something
her.
about a gut feeling, right? We're leaning into the Sabalenka train.
Yeah, I think so.
If it feels right, I mean, I can't say it feels wrong. If it feels like Sabalenka has done the work to kind of get rid of some of those demons, and now it's just a matter of doing what she can do on court, controlling what she can control, and utilizing her game. Because, like, if you mention some of the best players on tour, if you like, I guess poll the WTA, a lot of people are going to say Sabalenka as one of the best players that are currently active. Like when she plays her best tennis, there's not many girls that can even hang with her, you know? So
Are you going
cheers
with
to
the same, I
Sabalenka.
guess?
Yeah. I'm picking Sabalenka to win
Okay.
over Keys. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the odds and many people have Pegula and Sabalenka like in some order they're two or three. Like it's pretty interchangeable. And Garcia, obviously, we just don't have enough of those big semifinals yet on her
Hmm.
resume. But she's another one. Like it's her, Jabeur, and Sabalenka, and to a certain lesser extent, Sakari, where it's like those are some of the best players now to not have won a major. But and I guess you also
Personally,
Keys and Pliskova, but
yeah. Personally, I want to see Sakari like really be the Greek warrior goddess that she is, but don't know if it'll happen this time. And I think I like her chances better on clay anyway. So
yeah. So I think we're riding the Team Sabalenka wave here, and
we
we're
definitely are.
we're sticking with it. But it was really fun doing this preview. And actually, before I let you go, I want to get some of your thoughts on the Breakpoint Netflix series. If you've managed to see any of it, or just read some of the recaps, or read what people are saying, what are your kind of, even though it's not really meant for us sort of diehard
Hmm.
weekly followers anyway.
I mean, I can totally dumb myself. I mean, that's kind of what Netflix is about, dumbing yourself down for like an hour or two and just getting pure entertainment. Like I shouldn't have to think that hard in the middle of a Netflix series. So I think they're going to conquer that bit of it because sometimes I do feel like the casual fan that even wants to tiptoe into tennis, once you realize that there's so many rules and so many, like just scoring in tennis can be a headache. So hopefully they've managed to kind of ease some of that pain that non-tennis fans feel when they try to understand the sport. I will say I haven't watched any of the episodes yet. It just released, but I am a little disappointed in the higher ranked media correspondents and journalists and stuff like that who were privileged enough to get early access to it. And a lot of their reviews have not been they've been either they have a tone of being like overly sour or completely missing the point of what I think the producers of the show are trying to get. And again, I kind of say that with a grain of salt because I haven't watched it yet. But the vibe is that they're just trying to highlight something that hasn't been highlighted for a while, and try to usher in a new lens and scope on something that feels a little bit dated. We love tennis, you and I, we're diehards, but a lot of other people feel like tennis is super dated. Why would I want to enjoy that? And it needs a little bit of a jolt in it. And to see the people that are super influential in our sport and journalists and media kind of be like, oh, it's boring, or they missed the point completely, or why did they do this? It's like, like I understand like that is clickbait too, but I wish it would have been more positive because if you pour positivity into it, even if you kind of have to fake the funk a little bit, that ultimately makes the sport grow. And I feel like the sport is in such a state of, I don't think the sport's going to die, right? I don't think it's going to like just stop existing, but I do think it's in a, critical spot. Like in the next 20 years, who are we going to look at as the faces of the sport, as we've had people that have been the face of the sport for the past 20 years that are slowly but surely phasing out. And I think tennis needs to be reintroduced to that. So I really want to, if it's not this series, hopefully it's the next, or if it's something down the line, I really want something to kind of breathe new life into the sport. And hopefully this is it, because I mean, Netflix is a huge platform. I mean, the show is going to be able to be accessed, I think, internationally in a lot of different countries, and hopefully that bodes well for international sport. So I'm looking forward to watching it. And even if it, like I said before, I'll land my plane here, but even if it is something where I'm like, this isn't accurate, or this isn't like a good representation of the sport I'm so tuned into, no pun intended, I can wave it like, it's entertainment, and that's what tennis needs more of. Not Nick Kyrgios entertainment, but entertainment nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean that's a healthy perspective, I guess, to have because I mean there is going to be hyperbole, there is going to be exaggeration. They're trying to get a broader point across to a wide range of audiences who some of them have, they never watch, they've not had a single introduction to the sport.
Right.
They hardly know anything about it, except they might have heard of Serena Williams, they might have heard of Roger Federer, and that's not really the point. I mean, I saw a lot of comments of people being like, "Oh, they didn't mention Nadal, they didn't do this about Novak and all that." I'm like, that's not really the point of the series, right?
Right.
So I think it's more, and then also I think I'm giving them a little bit of a free pass just because like the first few episodes, like I mean, yes, they missed like huge chunks of the year, and like maybe they could have gone with like a different moments, but with like the cast of characters that they had, it's like
Hmm.
a pretty diverse mix, right? And then
Hmm.
also like they're not being like for the producers who are like the cameras and everyone following this, like they're probably just as new to tennis as some of the people watching it, and this is like such a hard game to like like cover in terms of like just explaining like what is even the difference between like a major
Yep.
and a and
A
yeah, like
1,000. What does that mean? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
what are these ranking points, like what are they really playing for, like what is this uh
Why should I care? Like, what are all
yeah,
these
like
moving parts leading up to?
yeah, exactly. And it's like, why should we care about a certain player, a certain narrative? And whilst explaining the scoring system, like it just feels like it's a very difficult sport, even compared to like F1,
Hmm.
where, it's still much more, there's a lot more easier access as well to players. I feel like players, even though as much as they want like behind the scenes access, there's still just like certain things like they just won't permit, when they're in a tournament setting and when they're just so self-centered and so self-focused like they have to be. There's only so much content you can really rain out of them. I don't think they have actually as much access as some of us think, like, and it's hard to kind of get these episodes within 45 minutes as well, unless you're
Right,
just,
exactly.
you know
There are certain time constraints, but I will say I have to give credit to the stakeholders and like the bigger tournaments, the Grand Slams. And I
yeah,
don't often give them too much credit, but I do appreciate that it seems like they're also on one accord with publicizing this. Like
yeah,
every Grand Slam Instagram and social media handle has been posting the trailers, really publicizing that they want this to kind of be seen to the masses. And even certain tournaments, like I think I saw the Monte Carlo Rolex Paris Masters post the trailer and like really pub it. Like,
yeah,
like that's not a tournament to the average viewer or to the average casual fan of tennis. Like you may know what that is, you may absolutely not. But to see really large people in the sport and tournaments in the sport really push and kind of be one cohesive unit of publicizing this, and this series is good to see, I think. So
yeah. And I hope we see some continuity in the cast of characters as well, so it really kind of builds on what we've seen now, as well as
mhm.
obviously, it'll be good to have, like Swiatek is, I think, is in the second half, and a few other names who are missing, and then you just kind of continue that narrative, and maybe hopefully they, the goal is that it lasts for like 4 seasons, 5 seasons.
Right, yeah, and
You
has
know,
a truthful impact, yeah.
yeah. So I think we'll really know its impact. I think, maybe in the US, maybe I'll find out when I'm looking at Indian Wells tickets and I see, these sales are going way through the roof.
Oh, gosh, you
Uh,
would think the sales, I mean, I don't know. The sales should probably go down if they're selling more, but that we live in a capitalist
yeah.
society, so that's not fair.
Yeah, and then, and also when the second series is released, maybe right before Wimbledon, what kind of impact that has. So it's all going to be, fascinating. I think I'm taking a step back from the whole, like, looking at it from our vantage point and just trying to just be like welcoming of it and just
Hmm.
just give it a chance because
Yeah.
I think there's some good there. So, but anyway, this was definitely a good chance to have you on the podcast, and it was good to go through all the contenders, dark horses, predictions, overviews. I mean, where can we follow you, Miles, on social media since you're pretty active?
Yeah, I'm probably too active. For anybody that has been listening to this, like I can't stand that guy. But sorry if you can't. Anyway, I can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and TikTok, all under the same username, Tuned Into Tennis. My name is Miles David. You can type in Miles David or Tuned Into Tennis, and I should pop up somewhere along those lines. You can probably find me on your refreshed feed once you refresh it or something like that. But yeah, I'm working towards getting some more content out and definitely giving my own colorful, passionate commentary to the sport, and hopefully taking this show on the road one day and impacting some actual ATP and WTA tournaments with my voice. So yeah, it's been fun. I love listening to you. And like I said before, I like interacting with all of the knowledge that you bring to the sport. I don't feel like I'm talking to somebody that has no clue what they're talking about and just kind of wants to benefit from the sport, but you actually care. And that's wonderful to see.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate all the interactions, and obviously, it's as many people as that we can have in this community, sort of bridging that gap between, TV commentators and casual fans. I think that's great. I think that's what the sport needs. It needs some more insight, some more, information narrative wise, statistically wise. I think, there's so many different niches you can go into than this broad game and that's played
Mm-hmm.
47 weeks throughout the whole year. So why not take advantage of it as much as you can? And I think these podcasts, these type of shows are a great way to do that. But with that being said, I'll let you go, Miles. It was great having you on. We'll definitely do this again at some other point.
I'm all for it. Thanks.
Yep. Cheers. Take care.
Bye bye.